Hey, what's up, gentlemen and ladies? Happy Argentine Air Force Day, and did you guys hear the news? Final Fantasy VII is getting a remake! Finally! I am so excited! What? You've known about the remake since 2015? And it's been 3 years since they've shown anything off for it? Well, okay, Square Enix might have forgotten about Final Fantasy VII, but I sure haven't. In the meantime, why don't we look at some of the spin-offs of Final Fantasy VII in the extended universe, or the so-called compilation of Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah, following the success of Final Fantasy VII, Square Enix really just started going to town with all the sequels, spin-offs, and side games as they really tried to milk FF7 for all that it had. They had the film Advent Children in 2005, the mid-quel Dirge of Cerberus in 2006, the prequel Crisis Core in 2007, and a bunch of other stuff like the anime Lost Order and the novella On the Way to a Smile, and a bunch of mobile games like the FF7 snowboarding game and G-Bike. Now, while most of these mobile games didn't really matter to the overall story and didn't affect FF7 in itself all that much, there was one that did, but sadly it's the most difficult to get to out of all of these titles, actually, as it only released on very specific models of obscure Japanese flip phones from the mid-2000s. That's right, I'm talking about Before Crisis, baby!
Now, I know what most of you are thinking. I know about Before Crisis, and yeah, that might be true, but how much do you really know about it? I feel like the average person knows that it existed, but that's about it. They can pretty much only tell you that it has something to do with the Turks, which is actually going to be kind of fun because the Turks have one of the best theme songs in all of Final Fantasy VII. You don't remember just how awesome the Turks theme song was? No problemo, I got you covered. Come with me.
So Before Crisis, like most long-lost, forgotten, and abandoned concepts from Square Enix, started in the mind of Tetsuya Nomura, who was involved in the original FF7 doing things like character design, battle visuals, and even helping a bit with the story. However, according to my sources, Nomura at the time was too busy directing some obscure Disney game that nobody had ever heard of, so he instead chose to give the title to a much newer guy in the company. In fact, Before Crisis would actually be his very first directorial game. His name was Hajime Tabata. Oh yeah, you heard that right. Director of Final Fantasy XV, Hajime Tabata. But you might be wondering how exactly Tabata went from directing spin-offs on random Japanese phones to one of the biggest and most ambitious games in recent Square Enix history. Well, they initially gave him Before Crisis because it was somewhat of a smaller project and they needed some new talent to work on it. Eventually, though, this also landed him the Fabula Nova Crystallis title of Final Fantasy Agito 13, which, if you guys recall, was also originally going to be a mobile phone game. However, eventually that was moved over to the PSP and changed into Final Fantasy Type 0, where Tabata would also go on to direct some other slightly bigger projects like Crisis Core and The Third Birthday, and eventually Type 0 was ported to the PS4, and Nomura once again got busy with his weird Disney games, so they needed someone to come in and replace him directing Final Fantasy XV, and Tabata was the next best thing. Slow climb to the top, but wouldn't you know it, now he's got his own entire studio in the company. But anyways, the game released in 2004 and was pretty much the first title in the compilation of Final Fantasy VII. It even had a soundtrack done by Takeharu Ishimoto. Wait, hold up. The same Takeharu Ishimoto that would later go on to compose Oh, hell yeah, this game is gonna be awesome. So the gameplay of this game is actually a full-on action RPG, albeit a very limited one at that, with it, you know, being on a crappy flip phone and all. But they have the whole shebang here: leveling, combat, missions, magic. The game even has its own form of materia, where you can obtain them by taking pictures of it with your camera phone. God damn it, Square Enix. So apparently you actually have to go out there and take real pictures with your phone in order to obtain materia in the game. And the way that it works is basically the game takes the dominant color found in the picture and turns it into a corresponding materia. The two examples that are listed here are a primarily green picture resulting in bio, where a primarily blue picture could result in cure, for example. Now, I don't know about you, but this seems like a really terrible system for a game. And just in case you thought Square Enix wasn't gonna include some kind of cross-play, pseudo-multiplayer type stuff, don't worry, they got you covered. If you fill your materia aid meter, then you can summon a friend to help you in a tough spot. Of course, your friend is not actually there playing, it's just their avatar, but this was about as good as it got in 2004. You could even trade materia with other players via email. This is truly the future, guys. But watch out though, because if you're killed during mission mode, you'll either be forced to restart the level and lose points, or you'll be imprisoned and have to wait for one of your friends to come rescue you. And get this, they can even come rescue you while your phone is turned off. Come on, people, this was 2004, there's some mind-blowing stuff right here.
I like how even back then they had a proto version of, oh, you ran out of time? Well, I guess you can't play the game for a day anymore, unless, of course, you share it with like 20 of your Facebook friends. Up to you.
But anyways, it was apparently accessed over 1 million total times, which for a phone-specific mid-2000s mobile title is honestly not even half bad. It was so successful, in fact, that they didn't shut the game down until...
Wait a second, this can't be right. 2018? You mean to tell me that Before Crisis was still available, still playable, on the 2004 Panasonic FOMA P900 IV just a couple of months ago? Final Fantasy XI didn't even last that long.
But okay, enough of all that. Let's get to what everyone is really here for, the story. Because a full game just about the Turks sounds like a really badass concept, to be honest. I mean, who didn't love those guys? So the leader of the group is this guy named Veld, and under him are 11 characters which the player can choose from. Since you get to name your character, by default, all of them are just named after their weapon and gender. So you have Rod Male, Gun Female, Two Guns Male, Shotgun Female, Martial Arts Male, Martial Arts Female, Katana Male, Nunchaku Male, and Knife Female. There was also one named Legend Male, so called because he is legendary among the Turks. He actually fought against the Shinra during the Wutai War, where he earned his nickname Death God of the Battlefield. That's the most metal name I've heard in my life. There was also one called Shuriken Female, however, she later came out in the other FF7 title Crisis Core, which actually happens at the same time as this game, where she was given the proper name Cisne. So you choose one of these guys to play as, and you start with your typical everyday mission, you know, trying to stop Avalanche from doing something, except bang! You might have chased them away, but that was just a diversion from the real plan that they were doing. Over in another part of the city, the president of Shinra was giving a speech and they shot him and got away. Except, of course, he doesn't die because you see him in FF7, but even still, they were able to shoot him and get away and properly distract the Turks on the other side of the city. These guys really seem like they know what they're doing. Only bam! Even that wasn't the real plan. That was another diversion. So they had a diversion for their diversion. And their real plan was to target the Mako, I'm not getting into it, cannon, and they were gonna fire it straight at Midgar to destroy the entire city. May I remind you that this is the same group that our protagonists are in the beginning of FF7? Yeah, remember how upset and furious the party was when Shinra destroyed one sector just to catch them? Well, they were gonna destroy the entire city just to take down one company. I get that they're doing it for the good of the planet, even if in FF7 FF7 they were called terrorists, but this is really making me question if we were on the wrong side all along. Luckily, the true hero, Sephiroth, was there to save the day by defeating Elfei, who was the leader of Avalanche at the time. Man, I get that in this game, like, Avalanche is supposed to be the antagonist, but they do some really evil stuff. Like, in one of the missions, you're protecting Professor Rayleigh, who has information and data on the creation of Soldier. The Turks were told to protect the data at all costs, but of course, since they're supposed to be the good guys, they choose to save the professor instead of his data when Avalanche attacks, and they're able to steal it. Avalanche's scientist Fuhito then corrupts the data and develops an elite unit called the Ravens, which they test on 2 innocent soldiers that they kidnap. And even though Zack, yes, Crisis Core Zack, manages to bring them back to their senses, they still can't save them because of how severe what they did to them was. Holy shit, Avalanche is evil. Like, straight up, inexcusably evil. You don't need these Ravens to stop Shinra, do you? And did they have to be innocent soldiers? Jesus Christ! But all of these coincidences start to look really suspicious to President Shinra, and he thinks that someone among them must be giving info to Avalanche. He suspects that it's the Turks leader Veld and removes him from command, instead replacing him with Heidegger. However, you and I all know that Heidegger is an incompetent buffoon who couldn't tell his left hand from his right foot, and on his first goddamn mission as leader of the Turks, he nearly destroys all of Junon, and Shinra quickly reinstates Veld again. Talk about poor management, Google has nothing on this, but it turns out that the traitor was actually, surprise, surprise, Rufus, the vice president and son of President Shinra, because even in the game where we play as the bad guys, he just can't be on our side, can he? The Turks basically place him under house arrest and take away his Game Boy while they're at it, but meanwhile over at Avalanche it's revealed that the leader Elfei was actually named Felicia, and she's the daughter of the Turks leader Veld, who everyone thought was dead.
God, this turned into a Spanish soap opera real quick.
Apparently Felicia owned this materia called Zirconiad, which had the ability to summon this powerful monster that Fuhito wanted to use to destroy him. Again? Fuhito? No! Bad evil scientist. Bad. Stay in your room. Jeez. So anyways, the materia is slowly killing Felicia, and they gotta get these, like, 4 support materia to save her. Long story short, Fuhito eventually gets these materia and uses them to summon Zirconiad, and then he fuses the monster with his own body and turns every single member of Avalanche into ravens like they did with those soldiers, because you just gotta be as evil as possible, right? Then the second in command at Avalanche, Shears, sacrifices himself to save Felicia, and there's this huge battle where the Turks manage to defeat Monster Fuhito and save all of humanity in the process. Veld and Felicia both live and get away, however, Tseng lies and says that both of them die to protect them from being chased later. Tseng then becomes the new leader of the Turks, who get reinstated as the group that we see him as in the original FF7, and that's where the game ends. You know, for being some dumb Japanese exclusive mobile game, Before Crisis sure did have a lot going on, especially in the story department. It added some pretty cool backstory to the Turks, and this new perspective that we hadn't really seen before of our group from FF7 being the actual villains, even if they did go a bit overboard in making them comically evil in the process.
Honestly, this just made me even more excited for the remake. I'm glad that I finally know all of these characters' backstories, and honestly, I wouldn't mind seeing some of them come back even. Oh, what's that? Nomura said that the compilation of Final Fantasy VII is no longer canon for the FF7 remake. That's it. I'm done. I'm done.